right. Well, my Tissot says it's $5.59. What does that one say? Is that the one that comes with a hotel room? Oh my God. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight. We appreciate your attendance and participation. It's now 6 o'clock, and our council meeting is going to be called to order. Would everyone please bow your heads while Councilman Villarreal does the invocation?
Dear Lord, thank you for all the wonderful blessings you've given all of us. Thank you for all the residents that showed up to voice their concern. Be with all of us, the council, as we make decisions pertaining to all the residents. And bless us that we may make the right decisions for all the residents. In your name I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Where's Janice? Here she comes. Thank you. Janice, if you could acknowledge that all of the... Thank you. All the council members are present. All right. For presentations this evening, we have one from former councilman and Hollywood Park resident Matt Ammerman with Travelers. Welcome, Matt. Please identify yourself and your address.
Good evening. My name is Matt Ammerman, 210 Yosemite. I'm here to discuss the commercial insurance and the renewal coming up with Travelers on October 1st. We're in some data collection with Janice in regards to being able to provide a renewal, which we will have for you guys next month to consider the terms of the renewal for Travelers. But tonight I really wanted to talk about maybe just the environment a little bit, about the claims that we've had in the last couple of years that Travelers had the policy, where things are trending, and then to be able to touch on the cyber policy as well for y'all to consider, that was in your packets, that's outside of what we have right now insured for the city. So just to give you an update, we've got several open claims. I know that I saw on your agenda that y'all are going to be discussing some of those towards the end of the meeting right now, that we've got with some past employees, Anita Ramos, and I'll give y'all some details in regards to those claims, but they are open and they continue to be, and we don't have those closed. We've had some recent claims with the cyber event, and those have just been finalized with the reports that came back from the Secret Service and whatnot, and so Travelers is talking with the mayor in regards to where they're going to stand on possible payment for that. But when I became your agent several years ago, the concern was third-party liability, meaning your systems get breached in regards to the city, and then the citizens' identity and whatnot is stolen, and then we've got events for them where their identity is stolen. And we have a policy right now in force that certainly can cover events for that. And we also have first-party liability as well, where the city's loses funds or has liabilities associated with a cyber attack. You know, there's some coverage there. It's certainly not what it needs to be. I was talking with the chief earlier before the meeting started. Cyber criminals are getting more and more creative, and so these cyber policies are evolving truly on a monthly basis inside the insurance world. So what I went out and did was found a policy for you guys to consider here at Renewal. I want to discuss that with you, each particular item on it, so that we can consider as a city implementing something like this. So is that okay with you, Mayor?
Sure.
Okay. So the policy that you have in your packet has many different subsets to it in regards to the coverages that are afforded. When you look at it, hopefully y'all have got this right here. It's got CRC on the front of it, and if you go to, I won't have you flip through all of them, but if you'll go to this page where first party liability is stated at the top of it, we'll go through each line real quick, and I'll give you examples of what kind of coverage this would afford, or examples of the types of breaches that could happen that coverage would be afforded potentially under this policy.
10 pages in.
Yeah, it's got page 3 of 4 at the bottom. Yeah. So if y'all are comfortable, I'll go ahead and get started. The first line on letter E is the breach response. So in the event that we've got a cyber attack here on the city, we have citizens' information that's stolen. If the I apologize. I think I got ahead of myself here. We need to get to A, so I flipped one too soon. Let's start with A, where it's the network and information security liability. So we have an aggregate limit on this proposal of $1 million. And so the network and information security liability protects the citizens' information or any information that is stolen or breached or attacked inside the city. And so that's what that one protects, up to $1 million for it. The regulatory defense and penalties, not too likely a regulatory body is going to come against a government body like the city. But I give you an example of regulatory body like the Health and Human Services, in the event that there was information regarding HIPAA that was breached, could come against the city. And so there's a separate coverage there for a regulatory body defense and penalties that maybe could be levied from a Health and Human Services standpoint in an event like that. Multimedia content liability provides coverage for defamation and invasion of privacy through blogs, social media. Can also provide coverage for slander and copyright infringement from an attack on the town website. So we're seeing that more and more, where these hackers are getting in and they're placing derogatory things on a website, and it takes some time before we figure that out as a city, and there can be liability associated with that as well. And y'all please stop me if you have any questions while I'm going through this. I'm just trying to get through it fairly quick here.
What's the retention? What does that mean?
That is the deductible, yes, $5,000, yes.
And this is something that we don't currently have?
Correct. You have a cyber policy right now, but it's certainly not to the extent of what I'm proposing. And the reason we're proposing this is because times have changed from 2 years ago when we put the first cyber policy in place, and giving you an idea of what you can purchase on the open market in regards to the exposures that businesses and government entities are facing this day and age. So, yeah. Sure.
If we did the HIPAA training, does that make our insurance lower, a lower rate?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. In some respects, not for a policy like this. I was just using HIPAA as a example. If the data was breached and it was HIPAA, compliant, and it was breached, a governing body like the Health and Human Services may come against the city, and that's where coverage would be afforded. But I'm not sure where that would apply.
So the insurance that you provide, the whole package,
Right.
would it affect that at all if we had the HIPAA training here?
Yes, it can, the whole package, but not this particular.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So the PCI is going to be your payment card industries is what PCI stands for, which is your credit card companies of the world. Fines and assessments that could be levied against the city. They set rules designed by the credit card brands to enforce card data. I know that I don't know how much credit card payments are being made to the city, but we can talk more about that. Again, I don't see that is going to be one that's as viable as some of the ones we're getting ready to talk about. So when we get to the next page on E, this is where we get in, and those were all third-party liabilities, by the way. So just the big difference between the third party and the first party is the third party are the parties, obviously, that are affected outside of the city. We start talking first party, then we're talking about the city itself, okay? So, but the city itself is responsible, right, for those third-party affected. So that's why I just want y'all to see that. And in the quote, you can see in the proposal, it does highlight third-party liabilities. So when we look at first-party liability, letter E is breach response. So identifying and notifying the breached parties and credit monitoring entities. So in the event that we did have an attack, it's the town's responsibility to notify those parties, and that can cost a significant amount of money to do that and time. And this particular insurance company goes to work for you guys. We pick up the phone. Janice doesn't have to man a hotline or whatnot. It's all done by them. So that's a large feature for us to take that liability off the city. The crisis management and public relations. Again, the city is breached. We're going to have all kinds of media out here and whatnot that are going to be having stories, and they have a third party also, the insurance company does, that helps us take care of that process. Instead of the mayor having to step in and do it, we'd have actual professionals in that respect that would take care of something like that. Cyber extortion. It's becoming bigger and bigger. I'm sure a lot of y'all have seen there's been multiple cities as of late that have been held hostage, and their funds have been held hostage from extortion, where Bitcoin is associated with payment and that their systems are shut down. The security, the operating systems are shut down, where the city or a business for that matter can't function as it does on a day-to-day basis until you pay, the amount that the hacker is, the extorter is asking for. So that's something that is happening a lot. And so we've got $1 million of coverage. As you see on there, all those sublimits are up to $1 million. Business interruption, an extra expense.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so if we're held hostage, what do you do? Give us money to operate, or do you give them the money, or?
Correct. So we've got a negotiator, just like you would think of a regular hostage situation, that comes in and begins to negotiate with the cyber attacker and begins to negotiate. Let's say they're demanding, a lot of it is the cryptocurrencies that they're demanding, but they could demand cash as well, $100,000, and we're going to keep you shut down in all your emergency systems, and you're entirely shut down as a city until you pay that. So then we end up having the insurance company afford you that negotiator, and then they end up paying it, obviously, to release the hold on your systems. Yeah.
Is there a time frame? I mean, a week, 2 weeks?
No, we go to work right away. Yeah.
And in your experience, how long is it usually taking?
It's not.
It's happened to Chavano last year, did it not?
Yes, yeah, and I don't know if Chavano had one of these policies or not. A lot of these folks that are sitting in our position that don't have them are having to just come out of their pocket. So I apologize. I don't know, what happened with them, but it happens immediately. I mean, if y'all called our office and said, hey, we're being held hostage and here's the situation, claim would go into coalition immediately, and we'd have somebody assigned to it, and it would start. So,
Is this for all the first-party liability coverage? Is that $1 million in the aggregate, or for each of those elements?
it is $1 million in aggregate. The entire policy is. So yeah, if we used up $1 million on that, then we would be at our policy limit.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not $1 million for the breach response, for another $1 million for crisis management.
No, and my first shot, Debbie, was to give y'all an idea of what we were looking at, and if certainly y'all feel as a council that those limits are not high enough, I can go back and get you another proposal with higher limits. But this was something that we felt like would be a good starting point. So, let's see here. Are we at I? Thank you. Oh, we're at actually H, business interruption and extra expense. So there is a waiting period of 8 hours here. Is revenue going to be impacted for the city when we're down, or when a hacker's got our systems or whatnot? If so, and there's revenue loss for the city, that's what that would be, the business interruption, extra expense. Then
One question, I'm
yes.
sorry. So hypothetically, we do have to use that. It goes up to the $1 million policy. At that point, we're at zero again,
Right. Yeah.
and we're not basically technically covered anymore after that.
Well, if we do go to that amount, that's correct. We'd have to write find another policy. And that's where I wanted to get this conversation started, to see if y'all would want to go higher than that.
Because you've got cyber extortion, then you go to the business interruption. Those two will just wipe the whole thing out.
Well, yeah, and that's my question is on the business interruption, what kind of, if the systems are down, where would we be losing, revenue if they were? And they shouldn't be down for long, as certainly with the professionals that are afforded to you from this insurance company to be able to have resolution.
Are the other cities using this right now?
Yes, I know that there are. Yes, there are. Most of them are using policies that are not necessarily add-ons to. They're using like internal policies, much like you'll have with Travelers right now. But this is an outside policy that has its own separate limits and whatnot, and beefed up, if you will, more enhanced coverage.
How does this run with Travelers, hypothetically?
So this would replace that.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have a policy right now inside of Travelers, and it has its own sub-limits and whatnot. But if y'all decided to do this, there'd be no reason to keep that, and this would certainly be an upgrade from what you have right now.
Thank you.
Yep. So we've got the digital asset restoration on I. That's if you're unable to access digital assets, would be software because of a hacker or malware in the system. It has its own sublimits for that software. And then we get to the most popular one here on J, the funds transfer. You've probably also heard of it, is cyber trickery, social engineering, where, give an example, an employee here, maybe the finance person's email is hacked and is sent to for a check request, that is fraudulent, but it looks real. It's got the Hollywood Park logo and the email and whatnot, and it goes over to finance and it says, please release a check for $100,000 to so-and-so, or wire fraud or whatnot. We would have coverage up to $500,000 for that. Now that has a higher retention at 25 than all other coverages that are being, or all other limits that are being discussed. So,
And this is the one that would have applied to what we're going through right now,
it can apply to that.
which is ironic that it's half of the amount when that's really
Correct.
the problem at this point.
Exactly, and the underwriters, based on us, because we have an open claim going on right now with that, and the underwriters, when they gave us this proposal, are well aware of that. We have to make them aware of that, and that's the most that they're comfortable giving is $500,000 essentially right now. It's not to say that we couldn't go north of there in future years, but because of the situation with where the city's at right now, yeah, this is it. Most of the quotes that we got, I'm bringing you the best one, we're all in that 250,000 range, and so these guys were willing to go up to $500,000.
What does it mean that they are non-admitted in the state of Texas?
So that's so we have admitted or non-admitted carriers. It's just that they end up having to be pay taxes and fees to the state because they're not admitted in the state of Texas as an insurance company. So we deal with admitted and non-admitted. An admitted carrier would be like Travelers right now that you have. Not every insurance company that is in the marketplace is admitted, license or not licensed. Let me say this correctly. It's a little confusing. They adhere to the Department of Insurance. There's no doubt, but the admitted piece of it, the non-admitted, causes them to pay the state taxes and fees because they're not admitted. And
And then are those fees passed on to us? Is that the significant? I mean, is there a significance on us?
No, the fees are in the proposal. So those taxes are $168.83 is the surplus lines tax. So sometimes you'll hear this as like a surplus lines carrier and an admitted carrier. So it is part of the cost to the city. There's a $168 surplus line tax and then a stamping office fee of $5.22. So and that's all a percentage of the premium, which the overall premium for this is the $32.31.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and that's how it's calculated. So there's some more down here on these coverage by endorsement, but I certainly am available to discuss this in more detail with you individually as a group, however you'd like, and answer any other questions. But I really feel strongly we've hit the high points here, and I don't want to obviously read through all of it, but I did feel that it was important in the environment that we're in that we did take some time to do this. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think
Thank you.
our goal is to provide you guys with the information that you need so that we can get policy figures, and in the next couple of weeks we'll have a special meeting to go through those, and thanks for taking the time. I appreciate that.
you're welcome. And we'll have more terms on the renewal for the Travelers very soon. Once we get the outstanding information that the city's working on getting to us, and I'll look forward to sitting down with y'all and talking to you in a lot more detail about that.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
What are the
Appreciate it.
chances of the claim being settled before the renew comes up?
I don't think that's gonna happen because of talking based on conversations that I've had with the mayor. I mean, I think I know we're getting close, to some resolution, but I don't think before 10/1 that's going to happen. And we have a couple of other outstanding claims that are going on right now that don't even have to do with the cyber, that are employment practices, liability issues, and whatnot. So we have 3 open claims. One of them's cyber. There's 2 others that are in play as well.
Can you provide us with a list of training that we could take, whether if it's sexual harassment or whatever that would affect our insurance to make a lower premium?
Yeah, so we do have, Travelers has amazing courses to be able to take as staff for the city, and I
They
can
just take it over the computer and they get a certificate?
correct. Yeah. So yes, I mean, and those are all on the Travelers website, but I can get that over to Janice so she can see it. And we sent that out at the very first when Travelers took the policy over several years ago.
And is that free to us, or
Yes.
do we have a
Yeah.
charge?
No, it's free to you.
So you sent it to us when we first signed on?
Yes,
And
it
we did
was-
not do the training?
I'm not saying that you didn't do the training. I
Oh,
mean,
no, we didn't.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. But we have, what's nice about what you had and what Travelers has is, if you want to talk about employment practices liability real quick, we have a separate limit for that as opposed to the way it used to be where it was all lumped up in one. And we've got some claims that are starting to run, and I can tell you a lot of the expense is just defense so far. So if there is a settlement, a large settlement, you're going to want to have separate limits, which you do. So you're in a good position if that should take place.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you again, Matt.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate it. All right, next up, we've got Bruce Beeler, longtime Hollywood Park resident. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. This is concerning our building department, I guess you'd say, in the building in the town of Hollywood Park. The recent legislature that just expired had quite a few things that affect cities and towns throughout the state. Two of them that affected us sort of directly. One was the Sunset Commission had tried to eliminate the plumbing board, which was going to eliminate a lot of things to do with plumbing through some very aggressive emails and phone calls and everything else across the state. That was overturned, and so the plumbing board will stay in place for the next 2 years. Hopefully by that time everybody will have figured out what it is they want to do and move on. The other thing is, which is what I brought up today, is that effective September 1, the state has said that we would not be able to dictate or material uses for constructing any projects. So where we now have 80% masonry requirements, that could go away. And I say that could go away as long as the material has been in use or approved over what they call the last three building cycles, additions, which since 2009, then it's approved to be used for any project that we have now. For us, like I say, we have currently have an 80% masonry requirement for new construction and detached garages, things of that nature. That potentially would go away. And I say potentially because it's going to run back to Mr. Henry and other city attorneys as to how to fight that should the city decide to do so. I've spoken with several city managers and a couple of other city attorneys, and they're choosing to ignore it at this time until something actually comes of it, and they find out what they're going to do at that point. It's going to impact. It'll impact us some. We do have a number of new homes, but most of the people are going to be doing pretty much what they're doing now. It'll impact a lot of remodel work, where it could have a big impact, not for us, but like in the city of San Antonio, because my impression is, unless you're in a historic district, they could now go in the middle of Commerce Street and build a metal building. And there's not a whole lot that the city of San Antonio can do about it. So that's something I wanted to bring to your attention, and something that you need to take a look at and kind of decide the route that you may want to go into researching it further, or trying to see if there's some ordinances or something that we can pass that will control that a little bit more. So the paper that you have in there is just in your packet was just kind of a quick Q&A from the Texas Municipal League, from the city attorney there, and they've kind of said there's not much they can do about it. I just don't think that's correct, but that's in bigger cities, they're able to control it a little bit with development agreements. If you're going to put in a new development, that's part of the agreement. It is controllable by HOAs. We do have and HOAs and deed restrictions. We do have some deed restrictions in all of our areas. Starting, I think Ryan and I just looked at one that started back in 1951 for a house over in the El Cerrito area. So that has deed restrictions, and each unit as it was developed has deed restrictions and homeowners associations that are associated with them, but some of the homeowners associations are no longer active. I think they are very active in the gardens and probably in the arbor, but other than that, they're not. So I think that would be something to look at as to whether or not those HOA and deed restrictions can continue to be enforced, even in light of the legislation that was passed.
Do you think then that would require us to look at our ordinances and button them down if we wanted to maintain? I know there was an aesthetic element of a masonry exterior, but I thought there was also a fire transfer element of safety with a masonry structure?
There is. That was brought up to me actually brought up to me by one of my own inspectors. But as long as that would probably refer more to the cities where the things are built closer and closer, because our fire requirements actually start at 5-foot setbacks, and out here, for the most part, we're at 10 feet between minimum 10 feet between houses. Most of them are 20 feet. So the fire issue, as far as the building code goes, is not an issue. That may be able to do something. I don't know if John can do something with the on the fire end of it to override that particular portion of the building code and say that it has to be something because of the impact that it would have on the fire department.
Okay. Shoot, I thank you for sharing this. Thank you. All right. Well, for our announcements from our department heads, John Patrico, our fire chief.
Good evening. For the month of July, we had 47 calls for service. 17 were EMS calls. We had 16 fire alarms, 1 structure fire that was in the county, 1 down power line, and 1 motor vehicle collision. Our average response time was 2 minutes and 47 seconds here in Hollywood Park. For Acadian, they made 18 EMS calls, and their average response time was 11 minutes and 55 seconds. One thing I would like to bring up, and I don't know if everybody saw it, probably not, but for those of you who have, I posted a thing on Nextdoor and our Facebook page about Knox boxes. And basically, Knox boxes are little lock boxes that we require all businesses to have that allow us to access the building after hours. Their keys are in there and emergency contact information. Well, recently Knox has offered these boxes for residential property as well. So although it's not required by ordinance, what I did was post the information on how to obtain one of these boxes. Now, for residential property, a reason you may want to have one of these boxes is if you live alone and there's an EMS call and you can't make it to the door to unlock the door to let us in, we're going to force your door open or break a window. So in order to eliminate us doing any further damage to your home, we have a key, and the fire department's the only one with this key to access that box, and we can enter your home without causing any damage. So this is something new for residential, and if you're interested, there is some literature in the back. It's going to look like this sheet right here, and it's back there on that back table. If you'd like to grab one, it has a phone number and also has a website. And you can get on the website, you can order the box, and when you order it, it's going to ask you what department and what town you live in, so they will key the box for our fire department. So, like I said, our department is the only one that has a key to that box. Once you get it in and it's installed, we will come and put your key in there and lock your key in there. If you can't install it or you need assistance installing it, we will help you. We've done it for 2 residents since I posted a couple of weeks ago. So it's a good deal. So if y'all are interested, if you need more information, if this isn't enough getting on the website, you're more than welcome to call me anytime and I'll help you all out.
Thank you, Johnny. Are those all placed at the same place on people's homes so you know where to look for them?
Yeah, we try and have them put by the front door, and we'll do that with businesses as well. This way we're not trying to hunt down where the box is. So it would be mounted somewhere near the front door, mounted usually about 6 to 7 feet high, so kids can't really get to it without getting on a ladder. But these are really stout boxes. They're almost nearly impossible to get into.
All right.
Johnny, I have a question. What happens if the police arrive first on the scene and they don't have that information? Are they going to break a window or kick a door in?
That would be a call that the police department would make, or they could wait for us to show up with the Knox key if there is a Knox box.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief Pritchard, police
Okay.
report, please.
All right. Good evening, everybody. So I was going to say, and he said it, those boxes are I think bad guys would rather kick your door in than try to get in that box. So feel safe with those boxes on your door because they're great. They're very secure. And we've only had one instance that I can recall that an officer had to kick a door before the fire department got there. So there are some situations that we have to do that, but it's rare because their response time is so good here with the fire department that normally that works out just fine because they got a great response time. So, Mayor and Council, if you'd indulge real quick, I have a quick story to share with you. This picture up front here that we're displaying. This is Officer Stevens, and this is Sarah and Reagan, and they are Hollywood Park residents here. And I want to share this story with you, and I think you'll find it just as amazing as I did, which is why I invited Reagan and her family to the meeting tonight. So Officer Stevens was dispatched to a call, and I'm going to keep this kind of, I'll call it vanilla because I want to get to some privacy issues for the family, so we'll just keep this real light and vanilla, but I think you'll get the message. So Officer Stevens received a medical call, a 911 call, to a house here in Hollywood Park. It was a 911. So when he gets to the house, he was greeted by two little girls, these two young ladies right here. And I think I got the ages right, 6 and 3. Perfect. So Sarah and Reagan, 6 and 3 years old. They led the officer back to the restroom where their father was having a medical episode, and he wasn't able to call 911, obviously. So Reagan was able to do that and got help there and showed us where to go, and we were able to get the fire department EMS and get him stabilized and get him help. And in fact, he's here today as a result of that. So to me, a 6-year-old that has the wherewithal to call 911 in a stressful situation where their father is unresponsive, to wait for the officers to get there, to take the officers to father and maintain composure is amazing to me. I just found that to be amazing, and I could only hope that my daughters would do the same for me, although I don't know if that's the case. But so I might have to adopt one of these girls just in case. That's a great insurance policy, right? So what I'd like to do is bring the family up front, if that's okay with you, Mayor, if you would join us, and I would like to present Reagan and Sarah with an award.
Please. Robin's in the military, so she wasn't home. She was actually in California. I'm not sure where you're at in California, but the only place I've been there was NTC. I don't recommend
Fort Hunter Liggett, close to NTC.
Yeah, it's not a lot of fun. So what I have here for you, Reagan, is a life-saving award, and this is something that we give to officers that help save somebody's life, and it's a great honor to receive this award, and we don't give very many of these out. So I'm really happy that you're getting this award. So I'm going to read this to everybody, and then I'll give it to you, okay? So it's a Hollywood Park Police Department Life-Saving Award granted to Reagan Mullins for her quick thinking and exceptional performance in taking life-saving action for a family member in need. Her bravery and ability to do the right thing is an example for all of us to follow. Mayor and Chief signed that for you, so congratulations and thank you for doing the right thing.
All right. Head down. Thank you. I appreciate you doing that. Yeah, thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so I put these up here a little differently, and I hope the audience can read this better. We used to just put our spreadsheet up there. It's hard to read, hard to follow. So this is the same numbers that you see in the Sparks when you get our statistics every month. So I just try to break these out to make them a little easier to see from the audience. We had 474 calls for service this past month. Officers responded to 9 offense calls and had 1 arrest, and we'll talk about that one. Citation-wise, we had 465 total,
And here's how that kind of breaks out. So we had 113 on regular patrol. Then our STEP program, we had 259, 93 warnings, and we worked 2 accidents. We did have an assault. As I say, burglary of a vehicle down there. We had 2 of those, a DWI, and some theft reports. The column on the very right is our year-to-date calls for service and citations. So you can tell these officers have been very busy. Then here's our second page of our stats, and I wanted to point this one out to everybody here. July is always a busy month for these, but this is our patrol buys, and I'm sure there are people in the room here tonight that have signed up for this service, and I'm glad you have. So we did 307 patrol buys in the month of July. That is an extraordinary amount of times that an officer gets out of a vehicle and shakes the windows and checks your doors while you're out of town. So thank you for allowing us to do that for you, and hopefully everything turned out just fine on your trip. We did send one of our patrol supervisors to the FBI. It's called LEADA. That's a leadership class. It's a phenomenal class. We were fortunate in that the chief of Castle Hills offered us a slot for free. That's a very expensive training. It's about $900. So he offered a slot to us for free, and so we sent one of our supervisors to this training this past month. And then this is the time of year where we do our annual meeting for the police department. We all get together, and during that time, we do our annual training, annual qualifications, and then this year we focused on simulator training. So what I was able to do is set this up for all of our patrolmen, and they go through this computer simulated program, and it's reactive. So they have these handguns here that actually have a CO2 cartridge, and they'll recoil and they'll make a little bit of noise, but the screen reacts to their action. So if they say get down or drop the gun, then the simulation will make that happen. And also, if you fire, it will also show you the results of that. And then at the end of that exercise, you get the walkthrough and the training. So I was very impressed with this, and it's extremely affordable, and it's just down the street where we're able to do it. So I think this is something we're going to try to do a little bit more of, because as you know, in the climate we live in today, this is very important, this shoot, don't shoot. So hopefully some of you saw this on KSAT. They did a news story about this drug arrest, something we're very proud of. By the way, this is Rocket, this K-9. He actually belongs to the DEA. His handler is a Bexar County Sheriff's deputy assigned to the Drug Task Force. We do have an officer assigned to the Drug Task Force, and this was a case he was involved in. This vehicle here, as you can see, this bumper is missing. Well, Rocket found all these drugs inside this bumper right here, working, trying to detect these drugs. Now, here's the important part of this, though. So we have black tar heroin. That's 4 kilos of black tar heroin. That's typically found coming up from Mexico. It's pretty nasty stuff. But here's the stuff we worry about right now on the street. So there was 3 kilos of fentanyl. If you don't know what fentanyl is, it's an opioid. It was used to treat cancer patients for pain. It's 50 times more potent than heroin. So a grain of salt size of fentanyl, if you absorb that, it can kill you. So that's how powerful this stuff is. So now you take that knowledge and multiply it out by 3 kilos. And that's enough to kill about 10,000 people. So getting that off the street is huge, very huge. So DEA came out and we did a news story about this drug arrest. We're very proud of getting that fentanyl off the street. What they'll do is they'll lace this black tar heroin with fentanyl to make it more potent, therefore making it a more desired product. And they're making fake hydrocodone pills out of fentanyl and getting people addicted that way. So it's just bad news all the way around.
Was this from a resident of Hollywood Park?
So thank you, Mayor, for asking that. For clarification, this was not a resident of Hollywood Park.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out.
That's.
Thank you.
I was
Thank
asked
you
that question several times too online. I thought, I probably should have said that. Yeah, you guys are okay. It was headed for Bexar County, and we intercepted it, so we're in good shape. Jeff, if you would hit escape for me, I'm going to show a real quick video. It's on the desktop. No, hit escape.
Always good to point that out.
So I was trying to get this video to play in the slideshow, and it just not cooperating. But I wanted to show you we also recertified in our TASER. We do that every year. We have to recertify. And every year we ask for a volunteer. And now the mayor, he wouldn't volunteer. We were going to bring him in here anyway against his will, so to be realistic, but we decided not to do that. But I wanted to show you what that looks like for us.
911 chose to be Katie. She already signed the consent form. Are you ready for this?
Yep.
All right. Taser. Don't move.
Now here's the fire department coming to save the day. Pull out those prongs. Now, so I know that looks rough on getting shot by the taser, but here's what I like about this. It's a 5-second shot, and after which you notice completely recovered, no problems at all, but completely incapacitated and gives us time to secure the person if we need to, if they're fighting. Before, all we had was a baton and pepper spray. Pepper spray takes forever, 30 minutes to get off you and them. It's terrible. And then the ASP baton is not always effective, but it also can cause serious injury. So the taser is a great, less than lethal option for your officer. So anyway, that's the end of my report.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Chief, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
One, I want to thank you for you and your officers for the job you do for the town of Hollywood Park, because you're keeping us safe, one of the safest communities to live in and around the San Antonio metro area. And I'm asking my council members to think about his request in our Thursday budget meeting for a new officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Kelly Cannon, Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, looks like July, things have slowed down drastically at the Voight Center, as you can see the numbers. I mean, we went from 21 to 11, almost cut in half. Pool's been super busy. Everybody's enjoying the water. The state of the town is in pretty good shape. My guys did some road patch. We put out 800 pounds of asphalt out the last week of July, patching holes, just trying to keep things going. As everyone is aware, we're short a code guy right now. We're in the process of doing interviews. I got 3 interviews scheduled tomorrow, so we'll be moving forward on that. So you can look at our code numbers have drastically dropped because we didn't have anybody in July to do code. I'm doing as much as I can, the police department, and I think Chief Pritchard, his guys are pitching in and helping every way they can, trying to just keep things rolling. Y'all have any questions?
None. Thank you.
Sorry, Kelly, any update on the Ruta Mata house?
That will go to court next month.
That's actually on executive session.
That's what?
Executive session.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right. Jeff Henson, Director of Finance. Yes, the floor is yours.
Evening, Mayor and Council, and all the citizens. First, we look at the summary of the financials. Revenues at $4,310,000. We're at 101% of budget at this point in time. Our property taxes will be over budget by the end of the fiscal year. So are our sales taxes. So it has been a good year for the revenue-wise. Our
You speak up, please. You speak up just a little, please. Thank you.
How about that?
Thank you.
Our expenses are at 75%. Year to date, which is 10 months out of the year. And the reason they're lower right now is because we have a lot of public work monies budgeted for street repair that has not been used at this point in time. But even with that, it would still be under budget. I want to point out a couple of things. Your administration and municipal court will not, after this next budget, will be one entity. They won't be separated anymore. And it looks like municipal court is over budget. You know, it's 90% when we're only 83% in the year. But if you average them together, since really they're interchangeable and the employees in there are interchangeable, it's only 78% on the year to date. The other department that is the fire department is over where they should be this point in time at 10 months in the year. It's 83%, and they're at 87%. That is because of life packs bought earlier in the year that they had to repair. We got reimbursed by insurance for those, but they sit on the other side. They sit in revenue. And also because of some repairs, emergency repairs on our vehicles, fire trucks that had to be done, and that caused that actual line item of equipment maintenance to be over budget. Other than that, all the other departments, and the city itself is in good position. I want to point out one thing. There's an account here called arrest fees, which is under municipal court. The budget is $32,000. Year to date, it's $69,000. It won't be that way next year, but the reason it is this year is because the employees over there at municipal court went back 3 years and looked at tickets and items like that weren't paid, and instead of turning it over to the debt collection service, they called the people themselves. So we got almost a $50,000 increase for them doing that without the 30 or 40% that you would pay a debt collection agency. I just wanted to point that out at this time. Is there any specific questions on anything? All right. Oh, one thing I do want to say, I have seen the property tax and the sales tax and all come in, so you will be over budget for the year on the revenue part, because sales tax, for whatever reason, there was a lot that came in August, and also property tax. We had a lot of checks come in then also, which usually probably would be earlier in the year. I don't know whether people were waiting because they pay on a quarterly basis, but there would be substantial.
Can you share any details of the proposed tax rate or the?
The proposed tax rate for the budget, it is finalized because it's been sent to the appraisal district and the tax collector who put out the advertisements. It will be the effective tax rate, which means there is no tax revenue increase. Anybody who paid on their house last year will pay the same amount this next year. Okay, there will not be an increase at all on the revenue side. The only increase that is going to be in the actual property taxes is new property that is added this year, because that's not included in it. And next year, I will not be saying the effective rate. I'll be saying the legislature's new terminology called the no new revenue rate. Okay, that's what it is, and that's what it'll be. So anybody who had property last year will be paying the same property taxes on this year, unless there were improvements or something done by remodeling or something like that, and it got reevaluated. But other than that, it will be the same. And we do have $6.6 million of new property that was added to the roll, and that always helps because that is not included when you calculate that rate.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Janice?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, your report, please.
For the month of July, as Jeff had stated, we were pretty busy. We had a very busy court. By the way, thank you to the council for coming. That was very considerate of you. We had 430 violations filed for the month of July. We had 523 total cases on the docket. We brought in revenue of $39,310. For the building permits for the month of July, we brought in a total of 171 permits, and of course that includes pool passes, for a total of $19,410. Now, included in that is $4,000 we brought in just in pool passes. And so for the month of July, we had 21 resident passes, family passes that came in. So we still, in August, are going still pretty strong on pool revenue. So to the last drop, we're getting revenue for that. So that's all I have there.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yes.
Janice, I saw Lucia yesterday. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her.
Oh, Louisa.
Louisa.
I'm sorry.
I always
That's
pronounce
all
it
right.
wrong. If you could tell her thank you for going above and beyond her job, that was very appreciated.
I absolutely will. Thank you for recognizing it.
All right. Thank you. All right. For the city attorney, Ryan Henry, the floor is yours.
You guys don't want to hear from me. That's fine. I will echo Janice's comments, though. Thank you very much for those that came in and observed in municipal court. I think it's important for you guys to see kind of what court goes through, because that's one of those really busy days.
Indeed. Well, I wanted to thank everyone again for coming tonight, and I think Matt touched on the wire transfer issue that took place this past March, and now that all the reports have come in and we're getting closer to a resolution, I wanted to share some details of a letter I received from the United States Secret Service. It was dated the 15th. I got it yesterday on my birthday, and it was referencing the petition for remission or mitigation. What happened in the month of March was that some fraudsters enacted a couple of fraudulent wire transfers when we were logging into the payroll system with our banking partner Frost, and 2 wire transfers for $485,000 were executed, and we found out about it a couple days later, and the Secret Service came out and got involved, and they were able to freeze over $300,000 of it. And the letter I got yesterday included the paperwork to fill out with the banking information for them to return that money to us. And we were told that there could be a fee involved for their role in that, and I was concerned, but the fee for the seizure and the return of that $301,000 was $80.40. I was pleased. So I was thinking 20% would be $60,000, and so I was pleased for that. And now what remains is our efforts to seek collection on the balance, which is about $185,000. And now we're initiating the efforts to seek. I'm confident we'll be made whole. Again, no residence information was compromised in any way. And between our insurer, our banking partner, and our IT provider, I feel confident that we'll seek a successful resolution in the next couple months. And that remains to be my goal. So thank everyone for their patience, and thank our police department and the Secret Service and our banking partner for helping work on this, as well as the folks at Travelers. So thank you guys again. So now we go to the consent agenda to approve the minutes of our council meeting held last month. Would anyone like to move to approve the minutes?
Should I do the whole consent agenda? I move that we approve the entire consent agenda.
All right, do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And for the financial statements as of July 31st?
No, I did the whole thing.
Sure. Oh, you did everything?
I did the whole thing.
All right, and the financial statements. Thank you. All right, now we have an opportunity for citizen participation. If you'll come up, please, and state your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes to share your information with us. First up, I have John Mooningham regarding our street resurfacing project. Thank you for joining us, John.
Thank you. I'm the newest representative from CEC, Civil Engineering Consultants, replacing David Costales, and I'm here to give you an update on the street resurfacing project.
Can you speak up?
As you may be aware, we had a bid opening for the street resurfacing project this past Monday. Not this past Monday, but on the 13th. Bids came in exceptionally higher than what we originally estimated. We only had 2 contractors bid the project. I believe just looking at the street work, our estimate that we had previously provided was in the neighborhood about $452,000. Our estimates for the street work came in at, the low bidder came in at $911,000, which was a bit of a surprise to us. After speaking with Janice and yourself, we had a meeting with the low bidder, which was Alamo City Constructors, and they are wanting to move the project forward, and they're looking at ways they can reduce costs. I think the biggest revelation out of our meeting was the plans initially required the mill and overlay to be performed on a lane-by-lane basis, which basically was telling the contractor that he needed to mill a lane and then pave that lane before he could move on to the other side of the street. And so he said if we could relieve that requirement and allow him to at least mill a whole roadway before overlaying it, that it would drastically speed up his time and he could reduce his costs accordingly. He didn't give us any numbers just yet. There's some other factors that I think are going to allow them to reduce their price as well. CPS Energy was part of the project as well, doing gas relocations. Their bids came in exceptionally high as well, so they're looking at reducing their scope.
I'm sorry if I could interrupt.
Sure.
Council, this information that he's talking about is under new business number 2, if you'd like to follow along with it.
Oh, thank you.
So I believe we have two exhibits in there. The first being the actual bid tabulation, showing the actual engineer's estimate, their unit prices, as well as the bids received from the two contractors, Alamo City Constructors and Spa Glass.
Oh, okay.
So ultimately, we're in discussions with the apparent low bidder. They're looking to reduce their costs. Some other things that I think are going to help is CPS is reducing their overall scope. Initially, they were wanting to replace all the existing gas mains and gas services, pretty much due to the opportunity. They didn't want to have to come back at a later date and potentially cut streets. But given the current unit prices, they're doing a substantial reduction on their overall scope. So their new scope of what they're looking at basically runs along Meadowbrook from Voigt Drive to Danella, and then basically along Danella to Mustang. And then they'll be looking at creating two interconnection pieces that are on Meadowbrook between El Cerrito and Sequoia. And so
Are those the primary mains where they cross those streets?
That's correct. And the reason why they chose those mains is because they're actually upsizing them for reliability services.
Excuse me, Mayor, may I interrupt just briefly?
Yes.
Just to make sure there's no confusion or that the minutes are properly reflected. He's actually talking about an agenda item. He signed up for citizens to be heard. The rules for citizens to be heard shouldn't be applying when he's talking about a presentation for your agenda item. So his timing and your ability to ask him questions and interact on that item is appropriate. So I just want to clarify, you're really under new business number 2, and you're not under citizens to be heard.
Okay. Sorry, thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
You don't live here, do you?
No, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure.
So ultimately, being the reduction in the CPS energy work is going to allow that contractor to move a lot quicker as well. And so he won't be having to do a mill of a lane, set his milling equipment aside, wait for that lane to be paved before he can move on. So he had some substantial costs in there that were associated with doing it on a lane-by-lane basis. And so he's basically supposed to get back with us later in the week with a revised figure, and we're hoping that'll be something a little easier to handle than the initial bid.
Does it inconvenience the residents of the blocks that are affected when the whole street is done significantly?
The only difference would be that when they travel on that road, they're going to be traveling on a milled roadway section, which will be a little rougher.
Sure.
But really, that's the only difference.
Super. Well, will this discussion allow us to circumvent the need to resubmit and re-enter the bidding process if we're able to negotiate with someone who has been a bidder already? Ryan, can you?
Yeah, if you basically authorize him to proceed with discussing that with the particular bidder, yes. But you can still, if you're unable to come to a resolution on it, you can pull back and reject it after that. So you don't necessarily have to rebid if you feel he can negotiate it based on kind of what the per unit pricing is. And the way that it's bid, you allow them to kind of proceed forward with that.
Without a radical modification of the bid specs?
Right.
I got you.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
that information. Thank you. And Matt, you came up and spoke already. Did you have anything else you wanted to share? All right. Tanya Cummings, you have the floor.
Hello. Tanya Cummings, 129 Grand Oak. I am speaking under 2 of the subjects, so I'll wait till they come up.
Can you pull the microphone down? Oh, thank you so much.
And that is one of my issues. The microphone on the live streaming.
Yes.
When we listen to the budget meetings, the only person I could hear is Jeff. Everybody else, it was muffled. You couldn't hear it very clear. No offense to anybody, but I think the mic has to be right in front of them because I could not stay for the entire meeting. So I went home and tried to watch it a couple of nights later, and I had no, I couldn't understand it. The chief, he was not visible because of the position of the table. So if you didn't know his voice and didn't know the subject, you might not know who was talking first. Those are just, constructive things. And I understand the meetings are live streamed. And if they say live stream, does that mean you can watch them right now? And if that's the case, that's not happening. I logged in. I cannot watch the meeting sitting in the audience while it's going on. I have to wait till it gets loaded to YouTube to watch it. And there's some people, when they say live streaming, they're thinking they're seeing it now as it's happening, and they can sit home and watch it. They are unable to get here. And that, if it's taking place, I don't know, because other people are having the same issue. And a big compliment, thank you for the marquee out front. It's wonderful, but budget is not announced. The next budget meeting is not on anything. It's not on the calendar. It's not on the marquee. So if you don't know what's happening in the city, you don't know there's another budget meeting on Thursday. And then I'll wait for my other topics. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Bill Lockett. When you come up, please align the microphone appropriately and mention your name and your address, please.
Thank you. Bill Lockett. I'm right down the street at 140 Sunway. A brief comment about billboard. Let me stop. I wanted to first thank all of you for the efforts that you make on our behalf and the intensity with which you do it. Thank you kindly. It's an easy issue for me as I go out in my backyard and estimate where the billboard on 281 will be. It will be an impingement upon my privacy in my backyard. So I have a selfish interest against that. I understand we've come close to an agreement. You may vote on it tonight. I would suggest it would be a very nice idea to interrupt. There's probably a reason we're in a hurry, but to interrupt our decision, ask the billboard company what they would bid on the same contract with a provision to turn the billboard off between dark and 10 or 11 o'clock in the evening. I imagine that will be dramatically less in dollars. My wife and I personally would prefer to pay extra taxes for the streets and everything else that we need. I did drive by the location of the billboard on 1604. Those people over there are really going to, they can be able to read a newspaper in their backyard at night as intense a light as those billboards put out. So anyway, that's my brief comment. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Dr. Gary Nordsworthy.
Gary Nordsworthy, 106 Antler Circle. I'm addressing the City Council and Mayor Murphy to clarify some of my decisions regarding a billboard in Hollywood Park. Some of my neighbors have drawn some incorrect conclusions, so I want to set the record straight. The first I knew of the plans to place two billboards in Hollywood Park was when one of my enclave neighbors came to my office the morning after a neighborhood meeting regarding placing a billboard in the middle of Chula Vista, immediately next door to my place of business, Alamo Feline Health Center. I knew nothing about the meeting because the only notification was on Get Connected, a Hollywood Park mail service to which I was not a subscriber. I was told that there were only 5 people who attended. The person who brought it to my attention thought the decision was made and we were simply being informed of it. That day I called Hollywood Park City Hall and left a message for Janice protesting an apparent clandestine meeting and expressing my opposition to putting a sign in the middle of a busy street. In fact, Chula Vista is the only ingress-egress road to my subdivision, the Enclave. I knew that such a decision would have a negative impact on the traffic flow to my home and those of my neighbors. In addition, a high school bus and a middle school bus also use Chula Vista to service the Enclave. Since I have a grandson on each of those buses, I was especially fearful of one of them impacting the base of the sign and causing injury to many children, including my grandsons. It was not until I found out that Mayor Murphy was in the it was not long until I found out that Mayor Murphy was in the sign industry. That fact, plus the dubious neighborhood meeting, convinced me that a sign would be placed on Chula Vista unless there was significant opposition. My good friend and neighbor Alan Kreitz and I worked together to rally opposition to this decision. During the course of those efforts, Beau Burkett contacted me about an alternative. He offered to place a sign on my property instead of on Chula Vista. I was initially not interested and did not return his emails or phone calls. However, he persisted with the plan of placing the sign on my property. I listened to his proposal and realized it was likely the only way we could avoid a billboard on Chula Vista. That was reluctantly appealing to me. Not wanting to seem like I was taking advantage of the situation, I told Beau that I would only do so if I was not paid any money for the placement or monthly rent. In exchange, I would accept several 8-second spots of advertising on the sign per day as long as the sign is operational. I'm addressing you and my neighbors as you will know, so you will know my motive for placing the sign on my property. I'm not trying to benefit financially, rather I'm wanting to avoid having a sign on Chula Vista. Please note that I pay as much or possibly more in taxes than anyone in Hollywood Park. I own 2 commercial lots, a business, a building to house my business, and 4 residential dwellings in the enclave. I stand to gain as much or possibly more than anyone from the increased revenue of billboards. However, I would rather see a ban on future billboards in Hollywood Park, including the 2 we're discussing. Please place these remarks in the public record, and thank you for your time that you spend on behalf of our great town. I'm glad to be a Hollywood Park resident.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Carol Morris.
Well, that's sort of me. And you tell me if this is out of order. But as I was coming into the building tonight, Carol Morris approached me and said, "Would you read my statement?" So I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. She said she could not attend the meeting and handed it to me. I don't even know Carol Morris.
That's actually at the discretion of the presiding officer. If you want to allow that.
I've spoken with Ms. Morris, and I guess, yes, you've got a 3-minute time limit if you'd like to read it. If it looks like it could fit, please proceed.
Okay. To Mayor Murphy and members of City Council. For the record, my name is Carol Morris of 303 Havenhurst. Be sure you understand this next statement is hers, not mine. In all due respect, before I slug you, please let me hug you by telling you that your job to fulfill your duties is appreciated. Hollywood Park residents should be able to read the contract to view and understand exactly how this proposal will actually work. 30 years is a long time, and I, for one, won't be around to see its end if it happens, and I'm sure Mayor Murphy and the current City Council members won't be sitting here in 30 years either. So the decision to move forward with this billboard proposal should have very engaged vetting, not only on the elected officers, but to those who elected them, the residents of Hollywood Park. First, this billboard revenue of $50 million over 30 years will barely pay to fix our streets even once. The maintenance of our streets will be ongoing, especially if we continue to allow SAWS, CPS, and other utilities to constantly tear up our streets and then do an awful job of patching their mess. In addition, the cut-through traffic is and will only get worse. As the streets exist now, it's almost to the point that our torn-up streets act as a deterrent to folks cutting through our neighborhood. And to quote the mayor, according to the note Delane Hall posted on Nextdoor.com, he states that the $50 million is only, quote, if the revenue is earmarked for street repair. So to this point, please, Mayor and City Council, elaborate on the detail of the plan to fix our streets. Second, the fact that the property owners are going to be paid for having the billboard on their property is their choice for their own benefit. Exactly how much money will they receive, since this is being touted as revenue solely for the benefit of the town of Hollywood Park? Maybe these property owners should dedicate their revenue portion to the town of Hollywood Park. Third, the property owners are dedicating a portion of their land as an easement to the town of Hollywood Park. This should not be looked upon as a gift of generosity to Hollywood Park, because it is a requirement to make the deal work for the town to even receive the revenue. Where exactly will these easements be placed, and what type of easement will they be, permanent or temporary? Will it necessitate a replatting of the owner's property? If the answer is no, that will not pass title when the current owner decides to sell the property prior to the end of 30 years. So who pays for the replatting and filing at Bexar County?
Dr. Norsworthy, I'm sorry, we're at our time limit, but I think we get the spirit of the message.
Okay.
And
that's
thank
fine.
you.
Again, it's not my message.
Understood. Thank you. Victor Garza, are you present?
I'm going to pass it. What was said there was all I needed to say.
Okay, thank you. Mark Walker. Oh. Will you please state your name and your address, please?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Mark Walker. I live at 133 Antler Circle in the Enclave, and I'd like to thank you all for your service. I know the pay is not commensurate with the effort. I'm here to speak against the installation of new billboards for Hollywood Park. Yet I have several questions. One is, why are we going about adding new billboards when the city of San Antonio and other major metropolitan areas are doing just the opposite, trying to remove them from their areas? This town has ordinances that prohibit businesses from installing advertising for other businesses, and yet we're going to do exactly that by having them deed the land over to us. There are also ordinances that limit the installation of electronic billboards to 1 adjacent to 1604 and 2 adjacent to 281. Have we amended those ordinances already? I couldn't find any information to that on the website. And electronic billboards are prohibited within 150 feet of residential dwellings. The stated reason for this effort is to possibly, and I air quote that, possibly provide funding for street repairs, yet we've got money in the budget for street repairs that we're currently not using. Lastly, in my opinion, this is just not a good deal for the city. The money is not sufficient for the work that you need to do, nor will a 3% increase every 5 years even keep up with inflation. This contract, I feel, should be opened up to the public for review and discussion, and at the very least, the contract should be tied to inflation.
All right. Thank you. You know, it's important for me to point out that with Robert's Rules of Order in this forum, I'm only allowed to, all of us are just allowed to listen to citizens' comments. We don't have an exchange of information. We just take in what they provide us. Irene Morgan. All right.
I too would like to thank everybody for their service. I've been on just our homeowners association. It's a lot of work. I can't imagine running this.
Please move the microphone. There you go. Thank you. Your name and your address, please.
Irene Morgan, 120 Antler Circle.
Thank you.
And you can't guess, I live in the Enclave. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that when you're considering whether or not you're putting up this billboard, you please consider that the residents of the Enclave belong to Hollywood Park. We all know that there were comments made that were the loudmouth people around the corner. We heard it. We saw the tape. Everybody did. We're not the loudmouth people around the corner. We're not just loud. We are people. We are residents of Hollywood Park, and we would like to be treated so. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Should be loud and proud.
Yes. Has everyone had an opportunity to share their views with us this evening?
I was late. I did not sign it. Do you have time for me? If not, that's fine.
I believe so. Please state your name and your address.
My name is Sandy Lee Wong. It's 228 Alcalde Moreno. And so I also am impacted, just like the folks in the Enclave. However, I am exponentially closer to the issue than anyone else, with the exception of one neighbor. And quite frankly, I took a picture from my backyard of where this billboard's going to go. We can already see the one that's on Sterling Browning in the winter when the leaves are thin. I'm only 3 houses away from Oakwilt. We have spent thousands of dollars on what I hope is not snake oil to keep from losing the trees that we have. But otherwise, within just a couple of years, we're going to lose them. And then I'm not going to have any buffer to shield me from these blinking lights all day and night. I live in Hollywood Park. I don't live in an industrial park. And that's what's frustrating about throwing up all these billboards. Like one gentleman said before, the city of San Antonio is trying to get away from that because it clutters the side. It's a distraction for drivers. And, quite honestly, it's not the kind of place that Hollywood Park presents itself to be. And so, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, sure. Please state your name and your address and share with us what you'd like.
My name is, thank everyone for their service. I know it's not always a lot of fun tonight, particularly. I live at 121 Antler Circle, all right?
Your name? I'm sorry, your name?
Connie Poole, Poole.
Thank you, Connie.
There's already a terrible, terrible problem at Mecca Drive since they've now forced most of the traffic, or a lot of the traffic comes off of 281, and people want to turn right in front of the vet hospital. If you put a sign up there, the people are going to be even more distracted than they already are by trying to make a right-hand turn with 3 lanes of traffic coming down. We already have to go down and go behind Starbucks and go through there. I second the person who said we live in Hollywood Park, not an industrial park. There's already been one more electronic sign that's gone up since this whole issue started. So there's 3, not 2. So if it's shorter, but there's one, it's right at Mecca Thousand Oaks. It's by the automotive center there. So there's already 3, not just 2. And to add 2 more is adding insult to injury. And quite honestly, as a resident of Hollywood Park, I feel like this has been done in a backdoor manner. It has not been open and above board. And I don't understand why the council would negotiate with one company at the expense of all others, much less even doing this project. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. We have the option to go into executive session, or we can move forward with some of our old business agenda items. Is there a choice in the council? I think we'll move to go into executive session now, and we'll convene in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 to discuss the following: the status of the dispute with Burkett Media after application for license, discussion regarding pending claims filed against the town of Hollywood Park by Gina Falon and Anita Ramos, status of administrative litigative claims for 120 Fleetwood and 513 Rue de Mata, and legal issues associated with potential claims relating to unauthorized wire transfers. We'll briefly adjourn at 7:26, and we'll be back. All right. So.
Well, you could have given them to me. Yeah, that's
Twice a year. And I'm going, no.
I would be interested in it.
I think that's good, but there's also a possibility.
Marco and Dad pretended my wife when she was 24 months. Came back here.
Oh, here we go. Look at that.
I know.
At this point, I think they know what everybody's saying. They know everybody's saying. Nobody's going to be here in favor.
About 3 years in, I've been doing this 5 years. I agree with you.
How many we've had out of
To what it is called, everything was just happen about you, even though it's been because I know it's gonna, and I have a feeling they're
I changed my vote. I changed my vote.
signs next to, actually on both. So one thing is
You need to join. You need to join. Yeah.
So maybe that's no more sign.
Well, you're going to be ill informed if you do not.
Oh, yeah, because also find out I run next door,
It's that industry. We can't go. Exactly. Without being seen.
That was done a couple months ago. Which is actually pretty, no, March was when they first, yeah.
Well, they at least have something to think.
Until it's not.
But you seem to, 5 years ago, I think we all, it was in a good time. Yeah. Yeah.
As licensee, I'm not faced down. Recognized that he's still alive. Wholesale just wants to punt oh my goodness. Here's what this property's worth. Here's what's worth me. Here's what you can. You're right. And there's no dollars to get it here. As opposed to 9% of that's been my You're standing up. Yeah, they want to get rid of them. So the executor has discharged to
No, she's not, actually, she's not very good, she's a female, she's about 95, 100 pounds. The females are between 90 and 100.
Dictates to you, or if they die intestate.
She's a big girl. There's a lot of like people.
So if we have somebody dies from the will, and they are independent in this.
Okay. You're in charge. You're in charge.
My goal. And you have to get them under contract and then file those reports.
Well, which of your four cars are you playing?
It's actually more than that, because
You haven't seen anything.
House over from the Jackie estate. You should have listened to the Jackie.
Okay, so the first year we did it was last year with Carrie. She wasn't had it for a year. And I had all the kids from the Stephanie Smith and we had one who had the original stage Christmas. I had another one went So we were in the California parade this year. It's the only parade I went once on this year. We did Petite, we did Block Park,
I say it's fun, it's challenging, and it's satisfying. We have to help people achieve their outcomes. And it's
Yeah, I just think it's
record show up,
And so she and I just came up with a family, and she gave her
I don't want all of it, but you guys really something to do with the Excel spreadsheet. Every 3 days.
That was
Actually trying to another service actually called and what I was getting, our market is 270. 60,000 calls. The defense shields have gone up, but
They do that on purpose.
I think so.
Well, they can't. You know, they sit there and look at you like some statue. They can't come in, you know. And I said, you know, it's not the live streams, and then you have to go over to
Once you start to get
the
there,
next day. And then I mentioned the budget meeting. I said, if the live streams the next day, they're going to put some of the lights on some stuff. I mean, right in front of us, there's leakers. And if I hadn't been there in front of me, I would have known nothing about what was going on. All my signs, but I mean, you know, but you know, it just goes back to they're not paying attention. I started to say, and I may say that.
No, I've actually, you can be the San Antonio RC Johnny.
Yeah, because Johnny's
nationwide state planners.
Kelly and but I mean, everybody already called me, and I did know. I think if I
And what's the problem? The court said, I mean, if you're the executive,
well, then she didn't talk to me. Yeah, okay. All right, well, I've got Derek sitting next to me.
And now they're sending her an email.
Oh, I saw it, man.
But if you have the app on your phone, you'll know.
Okay.
No, I have the app. Don't even need to log in.
Okay. Later.
On a phone or an iPad, it doesn't require. Mr.
How are you?
we had for the 5th year, we started mom that died, and finally we had 4 years.
And I usually wear a sweater, but I'm.
But mine's got a contract. It has stuff, so it's like next to my bank account. It's a real short.
Everything okay? I saw you and Hubby scooting around in the scooter the other day. Yeah.
So you can just have somebody who's just drive.
I actually get sprinter by the month. I actually washed and rolled it and blew dried and rolled it today. Put on my. I'm not gonna wear it. Fix it.
You look very nice.
Thank you. These cars are ridiculous.
Oh, I keep it in one of the cars.
Oh, they always do.
It wasn't freezing before they opened.
Yeah, it's like
You put it in my car.
well, that's
So they have no duty to investigate. So they have to do a real cursory.
I can tell above the dust. I just love it.
I know. See, we're not, I'm not, and that's what it says. I was independent of a bank, all the appraiser, but I'm not the place. Just on the counter and actually could care less. So basically, I was hired by the attorney.
And then our.
Didn't know straight against state. So you would.
No, just all of it, just, about the jealous, he had like 10-day cruise this time, so we had like 6 times. There was a problem in the tax.
You'll be able to see those videos. I give you
They have to get cells in there. It's black and they do backwards.
So, I don't know, I always thought that's going on.
So maybe about
8 o'clock. Sunday brunch in the Cameron Hayden. I don't ever get you. I signed up twice. No, you were not ever. Not even on Sunday morning. They got me. So where did you sit on there? Okay. There's stuff over here, and I don't know how to get it. Yeah, but no,
I think theirs is more of the, his is more of the discussion.
Got in trouble for it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I got another from
March Wortham.
Oh, that's right. It came from you. But the thing was, when I got the thing, I was like, look, there's two other houses.
Well, I guess
Are your kids?
The ones that also have non-standard floors.
So I was just wondering, I was just
Right there on your street.
back in church.
No. And the
That's
right. I know,
Yeah.
I'm on it.
You would too.
No, that's where the house where Dan and Cheryl was living.
It's your roof? Everything should be made to your roof. Oh, my
Yes. And I don't know that. Well, just like on Facebook. Yeah, well, I grew up in the village.
Right now, the dollars haven't shown up yet because there's a little bit of delay.
Well, it's not too much. Pick a little bit. It says at the bottom.
I believe there are 19 houses here. I have a list here. Threw it up on a Thursday and had it under contract by
Last time we were here, there's one in here that says welcome election, and there's one that says welcome contact election.
That's right.
I clicked on contact. No, I don't see it, but now it's, okay, well, I did see contact, but I didn't. Okay, so, get that, and then it's like a big connected thing, and you sign it.
Sandy?
It's a lot of fun looking at that.
But I've done that 2 or 3 times. It never gets me going, so, I just found out friends that didn't tell me about it yesterday, so it's an budget meeting, so I get connected, and 16 months old. Everybody Came across to me, but like I said, I still wasn't getting them, so it came across. It just says, get connected today. That off. I still wouldn't get them. I mean, go around, get that. I still wasn't getting them.
Aren't these other offices
I had to send her, I had sent her a reminder and I said, I'm not getting it, she's here. Obviously, either my email address or at any time, it's always
Where's Nevada?
maybe it's actually. I used to get something. We'll see if we and it's not like
I wish that you could talk back and forth.
Does she live right across the street from you?
You know, the street, the girl lost it. You know,
Well, they said they were. The people I talked to. I thought you had a bag. That's what she said,
Has everybody spoke? So there's no good.
All right.
Guys bring your sleeping bags?
Hey. Everyone, thank you for waiting while we finished our executive session. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, it's 8:15, and we'll now bring our council meeting back to order. In our matters of old business, we have to discuss, take possible action to approve a banking contract. Jeff Henson.
The banking contract that we were going to decide on this meeting will be the next meeting in September because the budget is delayed. And in fact, I will be giving the two council persons, myself and the mayor, the books on Thursday.
All right. Thank you. Item number 2, discuss take possible action on Section 30-161, 7, enumeration of prohibited noises of the Hollywood Park City Code. Councilman Howe.
See, this is regarding working on your house on the weekends. Our attorney, city attorney Ryan, has made some corrections to the ordinance, the noise ordinance. The thing that regarding the excavation, demolition, alteration, or repair work on any building or other construction other than between the hours of 7 a.m. and it was 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. on weekdays. And what I would like to see is also on weekends, if I want to work on my house, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. added to this.
All right.
Thank you.
Is that for
I would not want to, beg your pardon?
Sunday also, Saturday and Sunday?
Saturday, weekends, yes.
So what'd you change it? I can't find my.
It
So,
was.
do you move that we make that change?
I
to
move
the
that we make
existing
that change, yes.
Would anyone like to second that?
I second.
Are we in sync with what we're moving? All right.
Well,
All in-
technically, let me make sure I
Please.
understand. You're making the change of the hours
Of-
to
correct.
weekends 8 a.m. and to 5 p.m. In the current draft.
Actually, we're adding that to the.
You're adding that to the
yes,
current
the
draft.
weekends. And you had changed the hours of 6 p.m. During the week to 7 p.m. So I want to keep that, but I want to put in the weekends that I can still work on my house if I want to between the hours of 8 and 5 p.m.
Okay. So with that in mind, you can technically pass the ordinance that's in front of you with those changes, or I can bring it back to you with those all integrated. It's up to you. But those changes are minor enough, I think I can correct it easy enough to bring, that you can pass it now with those amendments. But it's up to you what you want.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion then that we pass this ordinance with those amendments that I'm making.
All right.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, for items of new business, discuss, take possible action to approve the renewal of the insurance policy for fiscal year 2019-2020 for the Town of Hollywood Park employees. And do we have any citizen comments? Jenny?
Mayor, Council, my name is Jenny Haff. I'm with Marsh Wortham, and I have had the pleasure of being the agent of record on your group benefits for many years, which I appreciate and thank you for that. We have 37 employees that we insure through the group policy, and this year we received a 9.3% rate increase from United Healthcare. If you recall, last year was a doozy. Last year we had an 83% rate increase on the table, so we had to switch to United Healthcare. This year with United, we received the 9.3% rate increase, which would, assuming the city agrees to continue to pay 100% of the employee cost, would be a $25,952 increase, annual increase overall. So, as is my job, I went out to the market to shop other carriers, and we have Blue Cross Blue Shield came in with an offer. I met with Mr. Henson and the mayor in regards to this, and we narrowed it down to two options. One is an HMO option with a $2,000 deductible, and primary care physicians would be required. Reminding you all that currently the city employees have a $2,500 deductible, 80% coinsurance plan. This new plan, which would be an HMO plan, would be a $2,000 deductible, but you can see from your information that it's a $40,679 decrease over current was what we were able to negotiate, assuming if the employees wanted to take the Blue Cross Blue Shield HMO plan, they would have that option. It was brought up in the meeting that not everybody wants to go to primary care physicians, and so what if we offered two options? And so option one is the HMO. Option two, while it's basically an increase, allows flexibility for the employees to select if they don't want to go through primary care physicians, if they want to continue on with a PPO-like plan, then we would just offer it as a dual option, assuming the city would pay 100% of the HMO plan, and then they would buy up to the PPO plan, which is very standard in many industries in San Antonio. So a dual option is being proposed on your medical plan. And Mr. Henson will set the rates for the PPO. As we discussed many different options there, but I think it ended up that he would set those rates for you all as far as what that buy-up would look like. Most of the time it's just a true buy-up. You know, the employer pays 100% of the HMO, and then they pay the difference to buy up to the difference in premium to buy up to the PPO. But I think that's being discussed internally, and you guys can set it for whatever you want to set it at. So I show here on your form option 1 and option 2. What I should have really put is it's an option 3, which is a dual option. Somewhere between a $40,000 savings and a $46,000 increase is where you're going to end up, right? Because we don't know where your employees are going to enroll. But assuming that if everyone took the HMO plan, which is the quote free plan, and the cheaper plan for those who have dependents, then that would represent a $40,000 decrease to your annual contribution, city contribution. Before I go on to the ancillary, I want to make sure you all understand your options on the medical. Questions, concerns?
I'm hearing that our employees right now are having to pay a whole lot for prescriptions.
So their current benefits on the prescriptions, they have a $0 copay for generic and a $50, there's 4 tiers, 0, 50, 100, and 250. So on tiers 3 and 4, which are our higher cost dollar prescriptions, they have a $250 and a $500 deductible. So anybody taking those two higher tier medications, they would have more out of pocket. On the bottom 2 tiers, which are the generic and the name brand, is 0 and 50, which is pretty standard. So it's probably a few people who have those higher cost drugs, which are the newer drugs on the market.
That's for the policy we have right now.
That is correct.
And how does that compare with Blue Cross Blue Shield?
Mm-hmm. So on the new plan that we're proposing, on both plans, it would be a 0 for generic. They have a 4-tier, same. 0, 10, 50, 100, and 150. It's 5 tiers, but they don't have that deductible on the higher 2 tiers. So they can, out the gate, just start paying the copay, which I think is going to alleviate some of that out of pocket.
And that's option 1 and option 2 for
Yes,
Blue
ma'am.
Cross Blue Shield. Okay.
Jeff, did you approximate the additional part? I guess it depends on whether the employee is just the employee or if they have dependents, to know the difference between the employer-provided plan and the buy-up plan.
Here's what I did, and what I thought we would do was keep the health insurance at the amount it is right now, so it'd be zero increase, to the city. If you have a lower plan and more employees take the lower plan, then the city will pay less because your insurance is going to be less. If employees take the higher plan, they will pay that $46,000 difference between what we have in the budget right now, the $279,500, and the $325,000, where it's $46,000. It comes out to between about $55 $110 a month, $55 paychecks. They only pay out of 2 paychecks a month. They don't pay out of their, all 26. They pay out of 24 paychecks. So basically, it would be $55 twice a month for the employees out of their paychecks for the higher plan. And the lower plan, it will cost the employees nothing. But that is where the city's, city's only paying $238,000, but we have $279 in the budget. What that basically does is split the difference. And that's what I was looking for between where we're sitting right now with no increase, no decrease, and have the 2 different plans and let the employees choose what plan they would take.
Do we pay anything right now for spouse or for dependents?
No, ma'am.
Do not. Okay. One other thing I wanted to mention is that higher plan for Blue Cross was a deductible of $3,000, but we currently have $2,500 now, but the maximum out of pocket's also $3,000. So it's working more like true insurance to where it's covering, large catastrophes or something like that would happen for the employee.
What was it currently? Was it $5,200 or?
No, currently you guys have a $2,500 deductible, and then it's 80% co-insurance. So once the deductible's met, it's the 80-20 split with a max out of pocket of $5,500.
Okay.
So I think what Mr. Henson's implying is your maximum out of pocket on the buy-up plan is only going to be $3,000 versus what it is today, which is $5,500.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that include where they get like a yearly physical where it's not part of their deductible?
Yes, ma'am. So all these plans, because they're ACA, Affordable Care Act certified, they all have preventive care is included for 100% and no copay. Mm-hmm.
And do they have to go to a primary to be?
So those folks who elect the HMO option will go through a primary care physician to get referred on to a specialist. The reason we're proposing offering the HMO option is just for the people who have dependents on the plan. If I don't want to see that we just offer the higher, the $3,000 100% plan, the buy-up plan by itself, because that would reflect a 16% rate increase over current, which that's a lot for those people who have dependents. So the HMO option, yes, they go through primary care physicians, but yes, they'll actually pay less, those people who elect that, if they don't mind going through that. And interestingly, HMOs, though they have had a bad rap for years, they're actually coming back into play because the premiums are more affordable. So folks don't mind, or not all folks, but some folks don't mind going through primary care physicians to be referred on to specialists because they'll pay, $100 less or whatever for their dependents every month, so they don't mind going through that.
And if they don't go to the people on the plan, then what they spend goes nothing towards their deductible or their out of pocket or anything?
So there's a list of providers just like there are for United Healthcare. And so an HMO, if you go to the primary care physicians that are family practice, internal medicine, pediatricians, all those primary care physicians are network providers. Yes, you must go to those or you have no benefit at all.
Okay.
Right. I remember last year we were concerned with the increases we had been incurring that we wouldn't be able to continue to fund 100% of our employees' health insurance. I like that these plan options give them an option that does cover 100%. And it looks like the dental, vision, and life and accidental death are unchanged.
Yes, so on the ancillary coverages, your dental, vision, and life, We negotiated a 2-year rate guarantee last year, so you're still in that, so there's no increase to any of those coverages, so you would just renew as is on the ancillary. It's more, the decision tonight is whether or not you would prefer to offer that dual option, I think, or renew as is with United Healthcare with the 9.3% rate increase.
Another difference between the insurance, the Blue Cross insurance, and the current insurance we have now is, as you spoke, if you don't go to an in-network physician, you pay 100%. Okay, on the insurance now. The Blue Cross insurance, especially with HMO, is different, but the higher plan, the deductible is double, but you're covered, and that's your maximum out of pocket if you have to go out of network for whatever reason.
I'd like to hear if you guys, if the fire chief or the police chief or even the department heads, if they have any input on this as well, because you're the guys that are talking to these people on a daily basis.
Great question.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Councilman. We normally don't get to speak on this matter because it's I know it's your prerogative, but
well, I mean, we don't have any skin in the game. We're just
great.
volunteers here, so you
Well, I
guys are
appreciate
the ones
that.
that need to
Yeah,
give
I
us some
really do.
information.
So I hope I do justice to the police department, and I can tell you this past year, the biggest concern when it comes to pay and benefits has been the health care. And that's not a hit on anybody's job in bringing health care, and we appreciate that you provide that. That's not the issue. It's the coverages. I don't want to speak specifics to what the issues, the health care issues are, other than I will speak for myself. Okay. I have a specialist that I've had for 3 years. He's been in network. He's been out of network. He's been in network. He's been out of network because we change plans every year. This past year, he's out of network, so that means zero benefit to me. So I have to pay out of pocket to continue to see him. So that's important to me that I maintain that relationship with him and all my medical needs for that specialist. So it's very expensive, and I've forgone a few treatments that I probably could have used because we couldn't afford it. There was no out-of-network benefit. There's some medications that folks are taking. One that I heard was called Bistolic, which I believe is a $50 a month medication. It's a high blood pressure medicine. So if you imagine if you're on that every month, that's $50 a month just for that one medication, one a day. So it's pretty expensive. So I think health insurance is a necessary evil, and that's been the thing I've heard the most complaints about is the coverage this past year, and the no out-of-network benefit has been the number one thing that I've heard this year multiple times. And then I heard the prescription prices as well. That was the things that I heard. So I have to give them an opportunity as well.
So I agree with everything he said, and in our department, I have had a few of our guys that have come to me and mentioned the pharmacy, and one person in particular last week had picked up some medication and spent $600. So I don't know what medication it was, but $600 every time you go pick up your medication is a big hit. Of course, we all would love to stay with, the city at least paying for the employee health insurance. And I know there's several people in my department that don't care for an HMO and really would like to be able to go to a specialist without having to go through their primary care physician first, and spending that office visit as well. So that's how I feel about it, and that's one of the biggest benefits, like you said, is health insurance here and with the employees, and would like to see the city keep up with at least that for our employees.
I agree with both Chief Patrico and Chief Pritchard, what they said, and I really appreciate y'all looking at giving us some options. I mean, that's one of the things I've heard out there is, hey, we appreciate the insurance, but me personally, I'm getting older. I want better insurance now. 20 years ago, I couldn't have cared less. So I really appreciate having the option to buy up to a higher tier insurance. I think that's a big plus.
Well, first of all, thank you, Councilman Bailey, for asking, because sometimes we don't get a chance to voice our opinion, but I know all of us are very appreciative that you do still give us insurance, because I know a lot of cities don't do that anymore. So that's also a selling point whenever we're trying to hire people, that, we do pay for insurance for the employees, so that's a great thing. I love the availability of having two options, because I will tell you there are employees in my office that will go with an HMO. So I like the idea of having those two options. I think they're very beneficial. And I'd also like to thank Jenny, because, you've been with us for many years, and so you always shop the best deals for us, and so I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Can I make one more comment? When you look at the $55 or whatever it's going to be, I'm going to calculate that out, but that's going to be about what it is. Taken out of an employee's paycheck is taken out under the Section 125 plan. So no Social Security or income tax is paid on it. So in reality, it's going to be about a 20%, 15 to 20% less than really the $50 is. A lot of them don't, when I tell them that, they don't understand how it's working, but I say, believe me, you're getting a discount because it's coming out before Social Security and income tax is applied on it.
Are we willing to go where we have a bit of an increase instead of keeping it at zero increase to lower that rate for our employees for the buy-up?
We can do this any way you want to. If most employees take the lower one, and Ginny's says that most of them will because of the response and stuff like that. I don't know that. I don't know exactly how it's going to work. But yes, you can do that to lower the amount if you want to. It's $46,000 difference. Instead of taking the difference between the $238 the city would pay and the larger amount, which would be about $100,000, which would make it $100 a paycheck. That's why I wanted to keep it at the middle, exactly where we have our interest now with zero increase. Mm-hmm. You can increase it, like if you increase it to $25,000 that it would have been with United Healthcare, then you're talking about $20-something paycheck.
Because didn't we budget a 9% increase in the budget?
It was in there, but it's not now.
Oh, it's not now.
No.
I mean, if we can do that, I'd like to be able to do that. It's a good perk for the employees. Sure.
I think I didn't mean to interrupt you, but for sure be considerate of the to people with dependents, because we've got 6 people that have dependents, and in order for them to continue to cover their spouse and children, I just want them to have that option. So while you can contribute anything you want to that PPO or the buy-up plan, just make sure to keep that HMO option, because
absolutely,
because the dependent costs will be much higher than their
good. I was saying, keep option 1, but maybe increase the amount so they're not paying as $55 a paycheck.
Sure.
Bring it down.
If the budget amount was left the same at the $279, then that $40,000 difference could go towards. It just depends on the number of employees that would want to take advantage of the buy-up, and then depending on the number of the 37, they could absorb a lot of it or some of it. We just couldn't know, and without knowing how many chose it. Mm-hmm. That would be the key. If the goal was to keep the budget line the same, that would be an option we could decide on. And then,
do we have to decide? Can we just decide tonight? Yes, we want option 1 and option 2, but we can talk about it in the budget.
We will talk about it Thursday.
On Thursday, and
yeah,
we can
that's fine.
mess with numbers and see if we can bring the amount down.
Sure.
Yes. I've never had to use this option, thank God. But do I understand some people that I've known that's gone into the hospital's under the PPO plan, but the doctor that treats them is not, and they end up costing a lot of money. Has that ever been worked out with insurance companies? Is still an issue?
That's still an issue because all of those physicians, ER physicians, are independently contracted. So that's a huge discussion that people run into that frustration every day with every single carrier. They're all like that. So we just have to go to the mat every time on those types of situations for our clients. But yeah, that's the norm. They're trying to change it legislatively, but we haven't seen a change yet. Mm-hmm. Do I need a motion or?
I think I appreciate your time. Would anyone like to move that we choose the options 1 and 2 with the details to be worked out in our budget meeting? Or is that an option that, is that?
Good with that?
Okay.
Y'all want the options 1 and 2? Okay, well, I will move that we approve the renewal of the insurance policy for fiscal year 2019-20 for the Town of Hollywood Park employees, going with options 1 and 2, with the details to be worked out at the budget meeting.
All right.
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Jenny.
Thank you all very
you.
much.
Thanks a
All
lot.
Department heads. All right, the next item is to discuss take possible action to approve a contract with suggested vendor for resurfacing project from CEC Engineers. And I think from our previous discussion with the contractor, we're going to be in discussions with them to discuss options.
Technically, you didn't take action when he was up here on the citizens to be heard section.
Correct.
So if you want to say, to authorize him to have those negotiations, you basically,
Okay.
You award the bid contingent on instructing him to negotiate the price.
All right.
All right.
And I got the impression there was some room there, and it would be a good option to explore before we go to the trouble of having to resubmit this.
Excuse me? You could take no action, but then you would have to rebid it at that point.
So we're the motion would be to approve a certain contractor.
Yes, you
Okay,
approve the
to-
certain contractor
and who-
and instruct your project engineers to negotiate the contract.
And who was the contractor? Alamo?
Alamo. Yeah.
What do y'all think?
And if his bid comes back still pretty high, we have the right to.
Yeah, you reserve the right
Yeah.
to refuse the contract.
Okay.
And then you send it out for rebid at that point. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Are we good with that?
Let's do it.
Okay,
Someone?
so I will move that we approve Alamo to contract as the suggested vendor for resurfacing project, that we award him the bid and allow him to negotiate a price.
You instruct the project engineer to negotiate the contract.
Instruct the project engineer to whatever you said.
Negotiate the contract.
Negotiate the
All right.
contract.
Do we have a second for that?
I second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, item number 3 is to discuss take possible action on application for license to place outdoor signs in the public right-of-way by Burkett Media. Could you identify yourself, please, and your company?
Yes, sir. My name is Bo Burkett, and I'm the owner of Burkett Media. I've been, as you know, seeing me around at these several meetings. We've been working for about a year with trying to procure a couple billboard sites here in the town of Hollywood Park. As you all know, historically, there have been 4 sites that have been approved, all on city-owned property, and the previous ordinance was a little vague on where they could go, and it was kind of cleaned up back in July and passed that these 2 new applications could be turned in, and there could be 1 new one on 1604 and 1 new one on 281. We submitted the 2 applications for licenses. That's what these are, and that's what you guys will have in your packet. What I guess a little backstory for people in the room who weren't here back then is originally we thought it had to be in the middle of the street because it's historically what you guys have done. So we were going to put one, or proposing to put one on 281 in Chula Vista, which obviously had significant opposition. And then on 1604, it was going to go in the median of Voight. After seeing that opposition and also looking at the challenges of installing at those two sites and safety concerns, I got with Dr. Nordsworthy to kind of mirror what he was speaking about earlier. And I just thought to myself, what is a great solution here that's still a win-win for the city and our firm, and then also to make the citizens happier as well, and try to take on the opposition and see what their concerns are. So that's where we ended up coming up with the alternative of putting them on the neighboring properties out of the street. I thought that was the first and foremost thing we needed to do to make everyone happy. So we moved that on 1604 from the middle of Voight. We actually moved it 3 properties over onto the CRT flooring site. And that site meets all the criteria in the ordinance that was passed on July 8th. It has all the spacing criteria, everything as far as setbacks and everything goes. And it'll be a billboard, but I think it's important to note, and you'll see there on one on the site plan for that, is we are orientating the pole furthest away from the road that we can to where it'll actually flag toward the road. And what that does is it'll shield the view of the pole as much as possible, because it'll be actually within, there will be several trees that will block the view of those poles from the road. So versus where they were back in January and March, now where they are, they're much less obtrusive, and we tried to make an effort to make them as out of the way as possible. So we're flagging the signs to put them in landscaped areas that are not going to be obtrusive for our landowners either. And then one thing I really want to address after hearing tonight's comments is that every billboard here in town is in the industry called a back-to-back billboard, and then they have the web camera sticking off of the digital, but they're all a back-to-back orientation. Our billboards, we're spending several $1,000s more per structure. We're proposing this to go ahead and V them, and what that does is that kicks the advertising message around and angles it toward the road as much as possible. And what that does for the citizens who are talking about seeing the back side of the sign from the enclave and then also from the neighborhoods south of 1604 is they will not see any of the light trespass that you would see on a back-to-back billboard. That, in addition to the technology, has changed significantly in the last 6 years to where there have been efforts to where there's almost zero ambient light now, and they're a lot more efficient and lighter and just better overall units. But I just think it's important to note that we are spending that extra money to V those signs, to kick the ads around to the road and away from view of any of the citizens from behind the signs. Importantly, the money, obviously, we're actually paying more money than you guys have ever been offered for any of your billboard deals. What we're doing is we're matching the starting amount, but it's over the 30-year term, and it comes out to just over $5 million. That is a significant increase from where we started these discussions, and something that we feel like is a great deal for the city, and it's still, obviously financially doable for us. So that is the financial component of that. The city will be receiving free ads, as you have in your other agreements as well. And then, like I said, the placement is really key here. You're making the same or more money than you've made in the past, but you're not having to see them in the middle of your roads. So we're taking care of that safety concern, and we're also taking care of the visual blight. We're moving it onto private property, and the way that still works in your ordinance is that they will still be city-controlled sites through the way of sublease and subeasement agreements. So we've handled all that. In your packets, you have as well, there's a proof of funds letter in there. I have a letter from my lender. Everything's lined up. As you know, we've been working on this for about a year, so we have the sites totally contracted and secured. Both sites are with both landowners. Structures, the digital screens, we've done all of our due diligence. So we're basically ready to hit the ground running if we are able to get yes votes on this tonight, and we're hopefully encouraged to get this done tonight so we can get you guys paid sooner rather than later and get the signs built. And one thing I think is really worth noting tonight is I think competition's good. It's something I mentioned at my first introduction here in the city, and ultimately having a different billboard company here in town is going to be great for your local economy, because my competitor here in town is a great operator I have the utmost respect for, but they are a bigger national billboard company that has certain minimums and restrictions to where they can only do certain type of ad rate plans, and they can't go below that. What we've had a lot of success doing on all of our other digital billboards we have throughout Texas is we really cater to small businesses by having smaller entry point plans that our competitors don't do. And in most situations, our cheapest plan versus our competitors' cheapest plan in other markets is about 80% cheaper entry point. So we're really wanting to cater to the small businesses here in town, the local real estate agent or the insurance guy. They're the people who don't have SeaWorld ad budgets. That's something that we really like to focus on, and we're just really excited to be a part of this community. I've enjoyed being at all these city council meetings, and I'm looking forward to hopefully working with you guys. And obviously both landowners are excited to get going. Dr. Norsworthy, I'm excited to work with, and then our landowner on 1604 is really excited and hopeful that we'll get approvals to get this going. But I'm obviously available to answer any questions you guys have, but I just wanted to tell the room that's kind of what we did from moving them in the street onto private properties that are much less visible.
Bo, do your signs burn all night, or are they designed where they can shut down?
They do burn all night, and that's part of the reason for that. They do. The power consumption at night, there's a photo cell that's built into these units that takes a picture every millisecond. And what it does is the ambient light, whether it's cloud cover or not, or if it's daylight, darkness, it auto-adjusts to where at night it's using about 8% the amount of energy it does during the daytime. I mean, think about if you turn on a lamp in your bedroom in the middle of the day versus at night, how much more visible and how much more effective it is lighting the room up. So if we burned at the same lumens and during the evening, it'd be like looking into the sun. So that auto adjust, and then there's also webcam diagnostics. We have all of that. We're using the best manufacturer for the signs as well. And the reason we burn all night is obviously they're on interstates, and we'll have some clients like IHOP may want to be on the billboard all night if they're open 24/7. But also, it's really important that we obviously make our signs available for Amber Alerts and safety concerns and any kind of disaster relief. All of those is another reason that all billboard companies on interstates run theirs 24/7 to also make those signs available for the public, awareness and safety notices as well.
Any questions or comments from the council? All right. Well, thank you. You came up and you were provided that opportunity. Right. Okay. Do you have another? Thank you, Bo.
Absolutely.
All right. I see that.
Bo, I just want to say that I thank you because the biggest concern is the lighting at night. I don't want it lighting up someone's backyard or anything.
Exactly, and that's why we've made that extra effort. It is significantly more expensive to build a V-shaped configuration, and that's something we don't have to do, but it's something that we want to do. It's just an extra effort we're making to. We're taking everyone's concerns. They're not. We're listening to them, and we're doing everything we can, and putting the signs where we're putting them, how we're building them, the way we're configuring them will be so much less obtrusive and noticeable than the signs that are in place now.
Thank you, Bo.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Irene, would you please come up and state your name and your address, please, so that people at home and watching around the world can appreciate it.
Well, they said you can't hear them when you're watching around the world. I just wanted to make sure there was a couple of comments that I disagree with, and I hope that you all listen to him. The doctor did get up here and say he would prefer not to have the signs in his yard. He was only doing it to keep them from being in the middle of the street. I know he commented how he's looking forward to working with them, but he said he would prefer not to have the signs. We'll make sure you knew that. Also, part of the comments were saying we need them for streets, but I did hear it said the Public Works has dollars budgeted already for road repair. And I also heard that we have sales tax are way above where we had. And I'm just hoping y'all take in consideration not just the money, but our thoughts and feelings in people's yards and resales. I don't know where y'all live and present to these signs, but I hope you keep in mind the people who do live close to the signs.
All right. Thank you. All right. Please come up, state your name and your company, please.
Yeah, it's Tom Lanford, Clear Channel Outdoor, and I've worked with the city on the other signs that we've done. And just to take us back a little bit, the city asked for proposals back that were due February of this year, which we did submit, and I believe Keller Outdoor also submitted. I know that there was some problems with those locations, but nothing formally was ever determined on those. I still have not had a determination on that proposal that we submitted officially. I have been expecting that the city would want more, and I've been hoping that there would be a formal proposal process to continue a second round. The working from a private property standpoint is not new, and we had done it on Donella in one of the first rounds that we did. However, it severely limits the amount that you can contribute to the city in that case, because you have a bifurcation of rent going to the landowner and to the city. That's something that we would definitely be willing to consider, but this has somehow moved away from an open bidding process, which I understand isn't something that is required, what I've been told, but not sure why we wouldn't do it. I started the process back in 2011, Ms. Truman, you might remember, and I brought the idea to the city and stuff, but sure enough, I was forced to compete, which I did very aggressively and have ever since. So somewhere along that line, we did move away from the competitive process, and I don't know why, and I guess that's why I'm up here tonight to bring that to your attention, and something that we would still be willing to do. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Yes, sir.
Me, time at the pedestal, but I would like to invite everybody to a barbecue at a measured distance from the current sign we have, in case you don't live near one. And if we don't vote on this tonight and we proceed, I'd be happy to host that barbecue at the relevant distance that all the people surrounding these signs would be at in their backyard.
All right. Thank you very much. I know.
What about content of the signs themselves? Is that, who regulates that, or is that considered at all?
Certainly, and
Can you have him come to the podium, sir?
yes, please come up and state your name and address, and restate your question, please.
Victor Garza, 134 Antler Circle. And I just wondered who would be in charge of content. I mean, are there going to be adult clubs advertised and things like that? Might be a concern for young children. You know, I drive back and forth with my granddaughter, and no telling what she's likely to ask me. You know.
Certainly appreciate that. That's a fair question. Thank you.
Okay.
Can both speak to that?
You know, I can say with the signs we have in place, they follow the laws, and they don't want to make bad neighbors and create ill will by having controversial or negative messages, and it's in their best interest not to. And so it hasn't been an issue with any signs that have existed near or on our properties. I know typically they have statutes and rules of their own where they forbid adult-oriented businesses and other things. And then as far as but thank you. Your point's well taken.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all your good work, Street Council.
Thank you. Is there a formal response that addresses that in more detail?
Yeah, I mean, no, you covered a lot of it. Basically, there's text standards. You can't have anything misleading, profane, or lewd. You know, there's obviously that's just the starting point. But then, as a business, you know, like you're saying, for numerous reasons, we don't personally believe in doing anything that is not going to be accepted by the community, and we don't do that on other signs. I'd be happy to share all of our other advertisers and digital billboards and who our current clients are and what industries they're in, and we've never had anybody advertise with us in any of those concerned industries. We get calls from them, but we just, you know, but your typical advertisers, especially as you drive by the ones today, you're going to see your banks, and you're going to see insurance companies and hospitals and people like that. So that's really not a concern. And then, of course, I think it's worth noting, some people in here haven't been at all the meetings. These are static images that change every 8 seconds. They're not going to be any animation. And, of course, the brightness issue we talked about earlier. And while I'm up here, I'll go ahead and just address one of Tom's comments, is that he's absolutely right. This move to private property is more of a financial commitment for the billboard owner. But what I have gotten to is where you guys have gotten before. So you're basically getting in your street money, but not having to have them in your street is what basically the solution I've come up with. So it's really kind of a win-win for the city from a financial aspect. And I know some citizens in here, there's nothing I can say that will make them excited about billboards, but I think there's no doubt that where they're going now is going to be a much better placement option than where they were before in the middle of the street.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Agreed. Would anyone on council like to discuss this any further?
Does anybody have anything to say? They want to?
All right. I think.
Well, I'll say this is not an easy thing to do up here. And when we're sitting up here, we have to look out for the residents, but we have to look out for the town too. And it's not what you guys want to hear, but I'm going to go ahead and support the billboards. I think it's just too much money to pass up. And I'm sorry for those of you who are disappointed.
Are you moving to take possible action on the application for the
I
license?
would like to make a motion that we approve the outdoor electric sign license application by Burkett Media for the location of 260 North 1604 and 16201 San Pedro off of Highway 281.
All right, do I have a second?
I second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, any opposed? Nope, motion carries. Thank you. Our next item is to, pardon? Yes, certainly, Tanya. Certainly. Okay, please come up, Tanya. You have a voice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But I have a voice.
You certainly do.
You told us to sign up under the number, and I signed up under the number.
Thank you.
Tanya Cummings, 129 Grand Oak.
Oh, yes.
I had mixed feelings about the billboards. I listened to all the residents that it truly affects, and I'm affected by the noise of 1604 and Woodrow's and other things. So all of us that live on the outskirts of the town are affected by something. The people on the inside are affected by traffic, so we all have issues. I listen, and I'm sympathetic to their needs, but I'm also sympathetic to the financial situation of the city. And so I don't have an opinion really one way or the other, but I think you as a council take great effort and time to research it and be sure that they're doing the best for the city. It may not be the best for some of us, but it's best for the overall. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Tanya.
So would
Thank
you like me to speak on my next one before you pass on me next time? It's number 6. I'm just kidding you.
All right.
I
Thank
am
you,
on
Tanya.
number 6, though.
All right, the budget discussion. All right. Number 4 is to discuss take possible action to renew or appoint a Board of Adjustment members for 2 years. Janice, it's got your name by this?
Yes, Mayor. We've had a little bit of a turnover on the Board of Adjustment, and so we have had 2 volunteers. I don't know if Mr. Rodriguez is here or Mr. Ramirez. They were here earlier, but they must have left.
Wait, there's one back here.
There he is. There you go. Thank you, sir.
All right.
And I really am glad that they volunteered. The Board of Adjustment is meeting more regularly than we normally have in the past, so it helps that we have people that want to be on the board that have experience in certain areas. So I am submitting the names of Mr. Mark Baer and Sean Martinez for reinstatement to the Board of Adjustment, and adding Mr. Rodriguez and Mr. Ramirez on.
All right. I see information on Mr. Rodriguez. Did you say there was another?
Yes, sir. I put it on your
Oh, this is.
on your desk.
Gotcha. Thank you. Well, I appreciate everyone who devotes their time and energy to the benefit of the town. It's an important role and an important post. Do any council members have questions for Mr. Ramirez?
Wait, I'm confused. Is it not?
And then she provided this information in our packet.
So is it still these 3?
We're seeking.
We're seeking reappointment for Mr. Mark Baer and Mr. Sean Martinez. And then addition to the board are Mr. James Rodriguez and Mr. Dwayne Ramirez.
Oh, okay, so there's 2. Okay.
We're renewing 2.
Unfortunately, we had a member
adding
that
2.
passed away and another member who currently has some various health serious health issues and can no longer continue.
Janice, did we ever post this where, if anybody would want to be on the Board of Adjustment?
Several
Yeah,
times.
I didn't see it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Shall I move?
Yes.
Okay, I move that we reappoint members of the Board of Adjustment, Mark Bayer and Sean Martinez, and that we appoint James Rodriguez and Dwayne Ramirez.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate your patience this evening. Long evening. All right, our next item to discuss, take possible action to approve new non-resident fees for Voight Center. All right.
Okay, this is another one, Mayor, that Councilman Howe and I have been working on, and I must say that also my admin clerk, Patty Atherton, put in a lot of work on this. So the premise for this
Thank you for doing that.
Well, thank Mr. Howe also. The premise for this is we called other venues stating that we were going to have a seminar for the City Secretary Association on September 27th from 8 to 5 p.m. It was going to be 180 people, and we were looking for a venue with approximately 2,100 square feet. Because although the Voight Center is larger than that, I just wanted to put like apples to apples, so that was the meeting place. Didn't take into effect the kitchen, the library, the patios, none of that, just the meeting space. So I don't know if you've had a chance much to look at some of this from the last time, but they're divided up into the different venues. Now, most of these venues are for people, corporate events, and I mean seminars during the day and such as that. Now, there are some in banquet halls that do weddings and such, but the clientele that Councilman Howe and I were looking for is specifically corporate, people doing seminars, that kind of thing. And that's where we think that we can really improve the revenue on the Voight Center is during the week, Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday, rather. Did you want to speak on that, Mr. Howe?
No, I was just going to say, Kelly would appreciate that too, having day business, okay, instead of these late night evening events. And the other thing too is, when looking at the hotel aspect, there's a lot of factors involved. How many sleepers do you need? That lowers the rate on the rental of the room. Are you going to have food? Well, if you're going to have food, you have to have food that's from the hotel's kitchen. Danish and coffee. You won't believe how expensive those are. But go ahead, Janice. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's exactly right. So right now is just giving you a little bit of the information from the other venues and what the Voight Center currently offers. I'm not expecting a decision for today, but I would like Thursday at our budget session to be able to bring you an average, including all of this information, and also show you some of the venues so you can see kind of how the Voight stacks up against the rest of the venues, which I think we're way far and beyond most of these.
What I mean by beyond is we are lower than a lot of
Yes,
them.
but I think
Right.
our aesthetic is much better.
Correct.
Our location is much better. We're more centrally located. We're by hotels. We're by the airport. And we're in the area of the north side, which is very sought after. So I think we could get into more detail on Thursday on what you would like to see, but I can give you more of an average and the seating arrangements and what people do and give you an average on all of the venues so you can look them up beside each other and then we can get a price.
So you don't have an average, or you don't have a number in mind yet?
No, and also I was looking at possibly by square footage, looking at what these facilities charge per square foot, but some of them are $400 for any additional hour that you go past your contract. So there's a
I feel like we do need to raise it, but we just need to be.
Well, I want to be competitive.
Right.
I got a question. Have we looked at software for any of this yet? Or are you going to have to be answering the phone every time somebody calls?
Well, fortunately for me, Kelly has decided to take on the Voight Center and the pool area this
So,
next year. He wants to take
so I'll
over
ask
there.
again, have we looked for software at all for this?
We haven't got that far yet.
Okay.
Sticky notes.
Okay. Just so that other residents can see, they can go on there and lines, well, that's taken, and hit it all. Otherwise, you are going to need.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be able to post a calendar. This is what's available. So, keep it updated, keep it current.
And
So
some
you're
of-
going to do all that manually then?
We currently do it manually, but I think software is a great idea because a lot of these venues, you go online and you book.
Right.
Your thing, which I think is
So
the
the
best
next
possible
time
thing.
the area managers for Domino's has a meeting, they can also use the pool facility through Kelly. Just remember that.
Exactly.
They had a meeting today, by the way.
So that was just my point of all this. So Thursday we can discuss more, and I'll have more information for you.
I'll figure out the square footage
Okay.
also, okay?
No.
No, just,
It's a good start for Thursday night.
And if any of you
Thanks
have
for
any,
your work.
Oh,
Thank
no
you.
problem. And if any of you have any suggestions, please let me know because I can incorporate it into the PowerPoint on Thursday.
I shall. All right. Tanya, we're about to discuss budget discussion of 2019-20 fiscal year. Would love your input.
Well, I don't have a lot of input. I gave some of it. Tanya Cummings, 129 Grand Oak. I gave a little of it earlier about the mics and, you know, the being able to hear if you're listening to the live streaming, which is after the fact. But you know, maybe EDC could invest in a little gift to the city of better microphones. I don't know. I mean, you know, it's a thought of something because y'all's are great, but the portable ones are not very strong. I heard popcorn and Jeff, and that was it.
Did you watch it?
Anyway, on the budget, I hope you all reconsider the fire and police, maybe reopening theirs a little bit to give them some of the services that they're asking for. I mean, they know what they need in their departments. I mean, I'm not trying to knock that you all don't too, but you know, we are the safest town. We have a better insurance rate because of the fire department. I remember several years ago, the chief sent out a letter or something, and so I got a better rating on my insurance. And all of those services and the quick service that we have, if you ever live in San Antonio and come here, you think you've died and gone to heaven because we have instant service. And I think we want to keep that service as pure and pristine as it is now and enhance it. And yes, we have more cut-through traffic. We have more officers that are doing arrests. We have more crime that's surrounding us. So we have to shield ourselves and protect ourselves. So I hope you all reconsider and open that up a little bit to consider it more on Thursday, and I will be here at the meeting. And also, when you were talking about insurance tonight, I'm a single person, and I've never had dependents to deal with, but I work for a labor union, and we covered everything for our members, and that was an unheard-of situation, but we owned our own insurance company. And I know people all the time who have children who they're on a tight budget anyway, and the cost of out-of-pocket is astronomical. I know insurance is very expensive, but if we have funds to make that a better benefit to draw employees to Hollywood Park, I think we ought to really consider offering them two options, the PPO and the HMO. I think is a definite because some do want the HMO. And I'm on a PPO now with mine, and I'm under Medicare, but I have a PPO and I love it. But I think covering as much of the out-of-pocket for the employee, and maybe, I don't know how you can stretch it into the dependents, but I haven't seen what you're doing, but just consider it.
All right.
So that's my voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.
And your hair sure looks nice.
Thank you. I actually wrote it.
she's the Breck girl. She's the Breck girl.
All right. Our final agenda item is to discuss, take possible action on amendments to the personnel.
Wait, but we didn't discuss the budget of the fiscal year.
Go right ahead. We're going to do that on Thursday.
Well, okay, but why is it on here? Okay,
That
well,
I
I'll just
have-
say that I'm up for getting you another person.
I have that on there on the meeting, on a council meeting, just in case something did come up so that we could talk about it if
Oh,
need
okay.
be. Otherwise, I wasn't going to, address it. I'm just going to say we don't need to talk about it.
Okay.
Except for the public comments.
All right. For Tanya. All right. Would you like me to move on to item number 7?
Move on to item number 7.
Discuss, take possible action on amendments to Personnel Policy Manual.
Oh, that's me.
This is Debbie
And you.
and me.
I don't know where
Yes.
it is.
And we found item number 7. We were trying to seek a grievance resolution process that would help streamline efforts for employees if they had an issue, because we're a small town and with a small staff. If an employee had an issue with another employee, we would encourage them to go to their supervisor. But if an employee has an issue with their supervisor, I wanted to assume the role as a grievance go-to person because we have a process in place and a form and a structure, and so I can be involved and try to resolve it, and then I can go back to that supervisor, and after talking about it with that employee, and see if we can make it right, and then get them back and talking to each other. And this is to shore that up because I think it was pointed out by Councilman Truman that there were some gaps in our personnel policy manual for grievances and other issues that exist in the workplace and trying to be a contemporary workplace. Is that a fair description?
I think that's a fair description. We've also added a full-on harassment policy, which includes not just sexual harassment, but all forms of unlawful harassment, including race, color, national origin, religion, age, disability, veteran status, genetic information, sexual orientation, gender identity. And then we also have added a bullying section, which covers behavior which is not unlawful, but which is still prohibited. So there.
Is this something we need to discuss or vote on?
We have
or
to
is
vote
there
on it because we're amending the personnel policies.
Okay.
Yeah.
To
And at some
embrace-
point, we need to go through the personnel policies
Yes.
and update them. And I'll volunteer to do that since that's what I do.
Yeah.
But I mean, not overnight, but I'll volunteer to do that.
Well, it was updated, I don't know.
2015.
Yeah, it's been several years, and there's been changes in the
Yeah.
law since then.
Yeah.
So an occasional, update every couple of years is advisable.
Yeah.
Just going through this in reference to what the mayor had brought up and Councilman Truman, I noted several areas that had been tweaked or changed by case law and things like that, and so modernizing it is a good idea.
Well, I move that we approve amendments to the personnel policy manual.
All right, do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, it is 9:18 p.m. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming. You know.